It'd be kind of interesting. And I can imagine a science fiction novel built around this is there's going to be two worlds emerging. A world of identity, which people choose, an opt-in world where we choose to reveal who we are in exchange for these freedoms. And then if you don't want to be part of that, then just stay at home. You're just not going to be allowed to travel. You're not going to be allowed into stores. So you're right, but you're going to lose a lot.
I think we have that already in the form of movies like Gattaca or Brave New World from Huxley. Right. I think there are those kind of differentiations already projected, and I think.
Is it inevitable, Gerald? Do you think that'll happen here?
I think it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't think we know. We have a tweet from the very aptly named Linux Rebel.
Oh, my God.
Linux Rebel says, shouldn't we be focusing less on what can't be done and more on what has to be done? Set up the requirements, then meet them. It's what's worked over and over in the past. Linux Rebel says, I'm not a rebel in this case. Let's just do it.
Right. He's right.
He agrees with you, Andrew. Yeah.
Good. Well, I agree with him.
Yeah. From J.T. Williams, do you see... Actually, I'll give you this, Gerald, because you're on the front lines as a CISO, especially a CISO of a security company. Do you see online security and privacy concerns as a pendulum that swings back and forth, or are we headed down a slippery slope?
I think they're trends, they're eddies and currents, but I think we're going down the path of greater transparency of what's happening online to authorities. So it's like if I'm trying to trace stuff today, it's like I have a lot more tools at hand to find out who's been doing what to our networks, when, where, why, where did they come from. NetFlow is awesome, just to say that. So with that in mind, I think there is a lot more technology out there today to allow a certain degree of attribution of activities that are going on online, both from a security and privacy perspective. Having said that, it's like I also see that there is almost an infinite creativity in terms of like how to bypass those systems and get around this. So I think we'll continue to see those kind of eddies and currents with regards to what's possible and whatnot. However, what I do think is like those that are not deep in the technical world, they're going to be much more exposed to surveillance and lack of privacy versus people that are really deeply into those kind of matters. I feel that I am relatively good in avoiding a lot of this stuff, not necessarily all of it, but a lot of it. But I know that somebody who's not necessarily dealing with this on a day-to-day basis will have a much harder time doing so.
I do have to say, and somebody said this in the chat room, really appreciate it that the CISO of LogMeIn and LastPass cares so much about personal privacy because, we kind of count on LastPass. We trust LastPass to do that. And it's so nice to see that you support that belief, and that's a personal belief of your own. So that's really, really good.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. The question I feel like I almost every week want to ask Steve is, are we winning or are we losing the battle against hackers?
I think we're treading water.
Yeah.
I think that, really, that we're getting better at security. They're getting better at attacking. And, often we look at some of the nature that like in a detailed view of what the bad guys are doing in order to get in. And it just makes your head spin. I wish all of that enterprise that is going for the purpose of evil were turned around and put toward, creative application of solutions, because these are super smart people.
True.
It's just a shame that they're spending their time trying to pry into systems, and unfortunately, they're often successful.
And I will also say, Andrew, I am a bit of an optimist in this society, sociological, political realm, because these conversations, like this conversation, the conversation about trading privacy and security, have very much moved to the forefront in the last few years. It started maybe with Edward Snowden, but I think even the general populace is much more aware of privacy issues and security issues, and much more willing to participate in the conversation. There's no solution without having that conversation and fighting vigorously for the side you believe in. Do you feel like we're making progress in that regard?
Well, maybe in a way, but I think we're obsessed with two things. We're increasingly obsessed with our own privacy in a world where we can't be, where we have to be willing to compromise. In 2007, I wrote a book, Cult of the Amateur, which you mentioned, which was very critical of anonymity.
Yes.
It was a sort of a critique of user-generated content. It said that our culture is essentially being destroyed by all this anonymity. And then in 2012,
by the way, I was very critical of you. We had a debate over that when the book came out.
Yeah.
And I have since said, and I think I said it in public, but I'll say it again, you were right.
Well, thank you. But who knows whether I was right. But then in 2011,
Just look at Twitter and you were right. It's obvious.
Well, but in 2011, I wrote a book which was a critique of Facebook, saying that the real danger to civilization was a company like Facebook that knew everything about us. So, I can see both arguments, but I think the problem is we have to be willing to compromise.
Yeah.
And I think that this crisis will be sufficient to convince a lot of reasonable people. There's always going to be hardcore libertarians out there completely unwilling to compromise. But there's a really interesting piece by Naomi Klein in this morning's Guardian where she talks about something called the Screen New Deal. Now, in this, she's being pretty critical of Silicon Valley. But I think any kind of New Deal that comes out of this crisis is going to be one that's bound up with identity. It will be a Screen New Deal, but it will be one that is built into the will to rewrite the social contract in terms of what's known about us, but also guaranteeing a kind of social viability. Otherwise, we're just fragmented. I mean, we're back in kind of Hobbes's natural world. We're all living at home. We can't trust each other. Yeah. And, all these words, Leo, that we've been talking about for years, with Steve Gilmore and all these other people, trust, attention, they were always very abstract. Now they're absolutely
very
real.
Concrete. Yep. COVID red in tooth and claw. Go ahead.
Just one for this, Andrew, is like just following up on that. So I think if we really think about when did privacy actually start to become part of human society, and I forgot who it was. It's like who said it's like privacy really only started to become something of a thing once we moved into large cities and mega cities. Because as throughout the human history, we were living in relatively small communities of a few hundred people, maybe 500 or 1,000. Those were big cities back when. And you really did not have too much privacy because it's like within those kind of societies, everybody knew everybody. And it's like if you were an awkward or a social outcast or what have you, it was weird. And it's like you could not hide behind anything. The only thing you probably could do is like really leave your village and try your luck somewhere else. So I think what we're seeing right now is like with the quote unquote global village that McLuhan kind of coined. I think we're really realizing that we are back in a global village where suddenly everybody knows everything about everybody if they want to.
Right.
And that changes the behavior kind of back to some of those times that we were at before. I do still disagree that we want to get rid of privacy altogether, although I think it's going to be increasingly hard to really maintain it, though.
Another question from Twitter. Again, your questions, if you tweet them at twit with the hashtag LastPassPanel, we'll get them on the air for our panel. Evan A. Barr, this goes back to our conversation about voting. He said we can bank online with security. How is voting more difficult than online banking?
I agree. I think I don't see any difference.
It's not universal. We need voting to be universal, and online banking is not.
Right. And I should point out that
why can't it be universal? What you're just extending. You're extending the security infrastructure of online banking in a universal way. Why can't you do that?
Because it's not available to everybody.
Well, we could make an ATM, a voting ATM. How about that?
But it's an option. I mean, I'm not sure we're saying that everyone has to vote online. We're simply saying it's an option.
Yeah.
Right?
You still want polling places, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why, Leo, you should get Jessica Rosenworcel, one of the FCC commissioners, on. Yeah. She was on my podcast. And I think one of the other issues that's really become so prominent in this crisis is the need for universal internet access.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Beagle Perth tweets, wouldn't creating a centralized electronic voting system make it more vulnerable because it would be one big target? He says, look what happened with voting machines. Those are eminently hackable.
And you made this point earlier, Leo, is that one of the things that a strength of our current voting system is its inherent decentralization. You might have some ballot box stuffing going on in some corner of the country, but it's not going to have an oversized effect. So I think that's a very good point.
I'm not sure I understand this one, Gerald, but it's for you from Unger. Matt, the postal method. Oh, wait, actually, first a comment. The postal method has been in use for a long time, like Delaware, California, et cetera. Alternatively, he mentioned something called iComply distributed identity systems like iComply I'm not familiar with that one. Enable a legal identity verification to be performed client side. Maybe it's something like DocuSign. I'm not sure. How can tools like this integrate with LastPass? You have a lot of single sign-on apps, I know. Do you? Gerald? What do you do with other tools? Are there ways that they can tie into the LastPass authentication?
We're still thinking about how we can do this most effectively. It's like I think we had the discussion in the past as well with regards to like what can we do, what can we not do. I think the idea of LastPass being a digital wallet for all kinds of authentication mechanisms is something that is super attractive.
Love that
but
idea.
It does come with a bunch of quality assurance issues, and it's not something that can be easily done. Sure, you can hack this together pretty quickly, but you want this to be properly safe. So I don't know that particular authentication system. iComply.
I'm looking at it now. It's a compliance management. It's intelligence compliance management. iComply. IS is, I guess, short for information systems. Yeah,
I mean, it's tough to build a wallet that is actually works and that you don't necessarily expose stuff. So something to be looked at for sure.
Investor services. That's what the IS is. Yeah, very good question. Thank you, Unger Matt. Mark Fishburne. Migration from the data center to the cloud. 40 million now new workers from home has created an unsupervised home-to-cloud path.
Yep.
Does the panel agree that companies have delegated data management to the cloud while security has been abdicated to the cloud with weak firewalls? It's an interest. Steve, you want to address that one?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the point I was making before, which is that when employees are protected essentially within the confines of a corporate intranet, they have the advantage of professionally trained staff who are curating the nature of the connectivity that they have, which is completely lacking from a home internet connection. And I'll bet we're going to see some repercussions from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like I said, the threat surface is definitely a lot larger. But at the same time, I would say it's like tying this all back together, at least through a corporate identity. And it's like I really want to make the distinction between the social identity or the state identity that you would have. But looking at specifically at the corporate identity that you have, you can tie back all of those kind of services together and have still a meaningful kind of security solution, because the IT departments, the security departments of those companies ultimately secure those kind of services that are being authorized. And then it's like if you put adequate kind of protections on the endpoints, endpoint protection, CASBs, all the kind of good fun stuff, you can at the very least create an environment that is reasonably secure. Is it the same secure as an on-prem environment? Depends probably a little bit also how you secure your that leverages software as a service that is tied together through strong authentication, multi-factor, single sign-on, et cetera, that still delivers adequate levels of security. But it's not. It doesn't come by itself. It's not just rolling out a domain controller, hooking up your machines to that domain controller and put a firewall around it, and boom, you're safe. But it's something that we've been thinking about for many years, anyways.
You know, Leo, the more I think about this, about identity in general, and the notion of it wanting to be some sort of lowest common denominator, we know it cannot be something that you know because you could forget it.
Right.
It can't be something that you have because you could lose it or it could get stolen. It has to be you. And so the only thing I can think of that seems practical, and people are not going to like it, but again, it's what do you get in return, is something like the Clear system for on a national scale, where you go to maybe to a bank where you prove your identity once, you register your iris and your fingerprint, and it's now part of it. That now is used to immutably identify you. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to carry anything. There's nothing to lose. And as long as the system, which is then later verifying your identity, is secure, and that we can pretty much do. I mean, the biggest problem is we always call it the last mile. In this case, it's like the last foot between something and you that verifies who you are. And I just think it has to be biometrics, because that's the only thing that meets the requirements. And of course, we know it comes with the liability of who do you trust to give that information to?
And then, related to that, James Flattery on Twitter suggests perhaps a federated system of identification. He says something like Activity Pub. So I could go to the post office to confirm my identity. You could go to Apple. Is it conceivable, or does that add too much complexity, that one way to decentralize this and one way to maybe make it accessible and acceptable to privacy advocates would be to federate it, to decentralize it?
I think we've tried this in the past with mixed success, I would say. It's like if you think back what things like WS Federation and the various other kind of protocols were intended to do, is like create a federation of identity providers that are based on SAML. So I think there's been some good stuff that is possible. I think the organizational complexity to run that is very, very large. It's not easy. Same with the technologies that rely on user certificates. It's like running that is not easy, especially once you start to go into very large environments. I'm sure anyone who's been working in federal government and been using PIV or CAC cards knows how difficult some of those things tend to be. So yes, it would be really great. I think we have some great technologies at our hands with OAuth and OpenID Connect and similar kind of things that do allow certain levels of federation and leveraging the same kind of protocols and selecting your identity providers. And we're seeing this today with the kind of social logins. It's like login through Facebook, login through Google, login through Apple, and those are the choices that you have. So I think there's starting to be a common denominator around picking the company that you like, and then establishing a mutual trust to this kind of central IDP. But I don't think. I think it's like solving that takes a lot of time and a lot of organizational efforts.
Well, we got some time.
We do indeed.
Let's end on a high note. We talked about the challenges, and of course we talk all the time about the challenges that this current health crisis presents, but it also does seem to present some opportunities. It certainly got us in the last hour and a half thinking about different solutions to the problems that face us. Andrew, what are the opportunities going forward?
Wow, I think there are tremendous opportunities for entrepreneurs to fix this, and I think the current incumbents in tech are playing in a pre-pandemic world. So all the challenges that we've talked about today of putting together an ID system, and maybe based on biometrics. I agree that it probably has to be biometric based to fix this, because we have to come up with a fix. Otherwise, society doesn't work anymore. There's no normal after this. We can't just go back, oh, well, we'll have a vaccine next year and then everything will go back to normal. We have changed in how we think about everything. And so the opportunity for tech entrepreneurs is enormous. And as I said, I don't think the incumbents know how to play in this world. I think they're living in a pre-pandemic world. They seem in some ways kind of archaic. Maybe it's blockchain-based, maybe it's biometric-based, maybe there's a way of combining them. As I said, I think the Estonians are pioneering this. They're thinking along the right lines, but a huge amount of work still has to be done. But whoever wins this is going to dominate the business and tech platforms of tomorrow.
That is certainly an opportunity. Gerald, what do you see as the opportunity that this crisis has created?
I think it's from a general perspective. What I really like, actually, what I'm benefiting from right now, to be honest with you, is like the ability to start working from home and have much more agile and flexible engagement with your work and the rest of the world. So I think we're in the mode right now, or we're in a situation right now where work from home is going to be the first order of priority for a lot of people, and that's not going to change anytime soon. It may swing back a little bit, but I think we're going down that path. And that creates in and by itself, I think, a lot of opportunities in terms of like how people interact with each other. Funny story out of this is like my team is very distributed, and we have a lot of folks that are for meetings or so dialing in, and we always had a few folks that were always in the room. Working from home right now makes the interactions much more equitable, because before it's like the folks that were in the rooms like had the giggles and laughs before and after, and a different level of interaction. Now we're all pretty equitable in terms of like the kind of interactions we can have, and I think that changes the dynamic in the team. And if you start to scale this from a very small kind of a group to something much larger, like an entire company or an entire industry sector, I think it becomes relevant, and it becomes really something where we have an opportunity to shape how those kind of communication, how the collaboration ultimately shapes out. And I think we all agree that in some form or another, the way we identify there is going to be critically important going forward.
It's an interesting point, because it's true. Even just when we do our shows, the people who are in the studio always have an advantage over the people who are over Skype. Yep. So once everybody's on Skype, it is an equal playing field. It's interesting, too, to see how the tech community is responding, because Twitter just told its employees, you never have to come back to work. Yep. And Apple said, I think it's time you got back to work. They're already calling employees back to the campus. So different, Facebook and Google kind of split down the middle and said, no, don't come back till 2021. But I do think that's going to very much change how people think of work, what work is in this country. We're a service economy. And in a crisis like this, a third of our country's out of work because they're service employees that have nobody to serve. So that's certainly something we're going to have to rethink. Steve, do you see an opportunity coming out of this crisis?
I guess I would expand a little on what Gerald said. I agree with him completely, and with your point, I was going to bring up that the note about Twitter. I don't think, even if this virus disappeared a couple of years from now, that we're ever going to go back the way things were.
No.
I really believe, we see examples of this in security all the time, where nobody wants to make a change. Something forces the change, then it happens, and oh, look, it's okay. And so there was certainly resistance to, I look at the freeways in Southern California in the morning and in the night. That's just a nightmare. And the idea that someone has to spend several hours of their day doing that just to move their body from point A to point B, when often they could stay at point A and get the same job done. Well, they're doing that now. So this thing has forced people. You can't buy webcams because they're all sold out everywhere, because everyone wants to do online conferencing. So I think this is going to permanently make a significant change in the way we operate, and that we may see pollution levels go down, gas consumption goes down, the freeway traffic drops, because people, as a consequence of having been made to overcome their natural resistance to change, make that change and then realized, hey, I can drink my own coffee rather than swinging by Starbucks on the way to work. And I don't have to spend a couple hours in the car. And I get more time with my family and more time with my kids, and I have more freedom and flexibility. So I just think we don't yet know how this is going to shake out, but this has changed significantly the way this country works, I believe, and the world.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. It's like, and I think Steve, one of the things that somebody else told me recently that I thought was really super interesting was we've had this in the past. We had the work from home kind of like a drive where people were starting to say, hey, I don't want to sit for 2 hours in traffic in the Bay Area just to do a job and essentially waste half my day. But I think what is different today is that the execs, quote unquote, the various kind of leadership is actually affected by this as well. There is no way to get into the office right now. There is no way to have physical meetings. And I think they're with now, again, it's like everybody being equal from that perspective. Everybody has the opportunity to see the benefits of this. And I think I agree with you. It's like with this kind of exposure, there's a good chance that this work remote first kind of like approach is really going to be sticking to with us for a very long time or forever.
There's actually a long historic precedent of pandemics changing culture, changing society back to 165 AD when the Antonine Plague helped the fall of the Roman Empire. So we're in good company, I guess. I couldn't have been in better company for this conversation. I want to thank all three of you for making this just a fascinating talk. Steve Gibson will be back together again on Tuesday for Security Now. And every week, grc.com is his website. He's on Twitter at SGGRC. And we've taken you long enough away from getting SpinRite going. So go back to work.
I'm
now.
back to coding.
Get back to coding. Andrew Keen, are you in the middle of another book these days, or what's your status?
Well, I've got my daily podcast show, but yeah, I'm thinking about doing a book about all these new tech realities. It's really interesting.
It is. It's
for somebody. Good way to. Yeah, it's a good way to think this stuff through, this conversation.
Yeah, for somebody like you who's really an observer of how society is changing thanks to technology, this is an exciting and challenging time. ajkeen.com. Where's the podcast?
It's at LitHub Radio. So it's the Keen On podcast, but it's a daily show, and it's I'll say it myself, but it's good. I just had Don Tapscott on talking about blockchain. So,
I love Don.
Lots of tech stuff.
Old friend. LitHub.com, Keen On. And doing it every day is an interesting idea. Good on you. How long have you been doing it every day?
I've been doing it since the beginning of the crisis. Well, Leo, how many shows are you doing a day?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even want to think about it.
And you're not working from home, or do you actually live in your studio?
It's interesting because I do have the capability of doing all the shows we do from my house, as do all of our other hosts. In fact, they all are. I told them, you stay home. That way I can use the studio without anybody around. So I am sort of in a safe space in my studio. We have to bring an engineer in anyway to keep things running. So he's way over there, far, far away. In fact, thank you, Anthony Nielsen, for coming in. We really appreciate it. Anthony's got a mask on and taking care of himself. And, of course, my wife. But that doesn't count, Lisa, because I live with you. So if you've got it, I've got it. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah, she's on my side of the camera line. We have a camera line that no one is to cross. There it is. There's Lisa. And Gerald Buchelt from CISO from Log Me In. Every time we get together, it's been a great conversation. I know we're going to do another one of these events for LastPass in September, early October. We don't know if it'll be virtual. My guess is, if Andrew's right, it's probably going to be virtual for now on. But
we'll find out.
We'll find out in the fall. But I'll see you then, and stay safe, stay healthy, Gerald, and thank you for what you do to protect all of us at Log Me In and LastPass.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate
Thanks for having me. It's as always, great fun be with you guys, and definitely inspiring conversation.
Great brain food. And by the way, thank you so much to LastPass. They named the studio. They bought the naming rights to the studio, which we are forever grateful for. Really, frankly, if it weren't for LastPass, I don't know if we would have such a big studio. I might be back in my living room. But thank you, LastPass, and I encourage everybody to go to lastpass.com/twit to find out how LastPass can help you with authentication, passwords, single sign-on. And frankly, it's a secure enclave for everything that I need to keep safe. LastPass.com/twit. Thank you, LastPass. Thank you, Andrew, Jerry, Steve. We'll see you next time. Thanks to all of you for joining us. This has been a fabulous conversation. Our second LastPass panel on the future of digital identity. Bye-bye.
Google finally did it. They brought their Pixel Buds true wireless earbuds to market, and I'm going to review them next. Hands on Tech is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Keeping passwords on notes or spreadsheets doesn't work anymore. LastPass easily keeps track and creates unique passwords for every site you use. Visit lastpass.com/twit.
This is Twit.
This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by LastPass. Visit lastpass.com/twit. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Howell, and I am here to review the new Google Pixel Buds. Think of these as Google's AirPods for Android devices. Apple has its AirPods, wildly successful. Google wants a little piece of that pie too, so they released their next version of the Pixel Buds. The previous version had this little wire that went from one ear to the other, and a lot of people didn't like how they fit. So Google brought us this new version, and well, you might be wondering if they solved some of the issues from the first version. So let's dive in and take a look, and I can give my review of the Pixel Buds. So first of all, these are true wireless earbuds. Definitely, in my opinion, an upgrade over Google's last kind of approach on wireless Pixel Buds. They're $179, so they're not inexpensive. I will say they're the same cost as the Jabra Elite 75Ts. Those happen to be my favorite of the true wireless earbuds right now. They support Bluetooth 5.0. So why don't we get right into the design first and foremost? Just right off the top, I love the look and the feel of these, both the earbuds as well as the case. They just, if you've ever had a Pixel phone, you know the Pixel kind of aesthetic. It's got a nice, smooth exterior, slightly textured. Everything feels solid to the touch. Doesn't feel cheap and empty. When we pull the earbuds out, and when we show the earbuds, you'll see that there's a little nub that's included. This is meant to mold into your ear so that they don't move. And I would say that's one thing to look out for. This little nub right here actually gets a little uncomfortable over time. So if you're wearing these for long periods of time, you might notice a little like a kink in your ear, and you need to shuffle it around or maybe take them out for a while. So that's a little bit of a thumbs down. But they also have a spatial vent design that is really nice to me. It's a great balance between being completely sealed off, which is what I'm very used to, and you do get better audio quality generally when you're totally sealed off from external noise. It's a balance between that and open air, which gives you more spatial awareness. So if you like to go running or riding your bike, or you just want to be somewhat more in tune with what's going on in your environment, spatial vent design is going to improve that and give you a little bit more awareness outside. But as a result, they do not isolate. So maybe, like, I haven't flown on a plane anytime recently, but these might not be the best earphones on a plane because they're going to let more of that external noise through. So keep that in mind. There is a sensor on the earbuds that detects when it's removed from your ear. That's handy because you can actually activate a setting that will pause the music or whatever you happen to be listening to the second it detects it coming out of your ear. And then consequently, when you put it back in, it resumes. It starts playing again. It worked really well for me. They are IPX4, which is sweat proof, so good for workouts. I definitely did a lot of running with these and a lot of workouts and stuff, got kind of sweaty and had no problems there. The full surface of the outside of the earbuds is touch sensitive. So they respond to different touch activities. For instance, swiping forward to do volume up, swiping back, volume down, tap to answer or pause, that sort of stuff. And it's all fully customizable, which I'll talk about just a little bit later. But and it doesn't require like the pushing in of a button the way the Jabra 75 do. So you just tap it lightly and it does what it needs to do. I like that a lot. The box does include 3 sizes of ear tips. The pre-installed ear tips actually worked well for my ears. I will say one bonus that I noticed is that either earphone can be used independent of the other in mono mode. So you're not locked into just using the single right earbud. If you want mono and you want to keep the other ear open, you can use either one of them. Also, and I thought this was really cool because this doesn't happen very often, I can wear one of these earbuds and give the other earbud to someone else and it will still play. Not all wireless earbuds do that, but the Pixel Buds do, and I like that a lot. Let's talk a little bit about sound quality because that's pretty important when you're talking about wireless earbuds and earbuds in general. Starting with call quality, I made a number of calls with the Pixel Buds, and I would say audio quality on both ends was excellent. I also had my wife call me wearing these and kind of test what I heard and everything. And overall, I'd say I was pretty pleased with the quality. Everything sounded clear, didn't let in a ton of external noise, so I felt like I could hear what she was saying and vice versa. So that's good. Music sounds crisp and clear, although I will say that the low end is not overemphasized. And I bring that up because the Jabra Elite 75Ts are my favorites when it comes to sound quality. And there's just a lot more low end response. Just music sounds richer with the 75Ts, and especially directly compared to the Pixel Buds, which are in the same price category. So if sound quality is your priority, you might want to look at the 75Ts compared to the Pixel Buds. Is one thing to keep in mind. The Pixel Buds do offer a feature called adaptive sound, and think of this if you've had in your car the option to turn on for with your stereo so that when you start driving faster and things get noisier, the volume turns up, and then when you start to slow down, the volume ducks down. That's what adaptive sound is, but it's really about your external environmental noises that are happening. I don't care for that feature, and I don't like. It's not an effect that I want when I'm listening to music. I want steady, solid sound. So I didn't care for this. I think this is a personal preference thing, though. That might be something that you're very interested in. So I think your mileage may vary as far as that's concerned.
I also connected the Pixel Buds to my MacBook Pro to record the audio there so that you get a sense of what people would hear if you actually use these on a video conference call, since we're doing that a whole lot more these days. This is the quality that you get. Definitely not nearly as good as like a wired headset with a microphone right on your mouth. A little empty. Wireless earbuds, when they're used like this, commonly sound kind of distant like this. So keep that in mind. Maybe not the best solution, but definitely convenient.
Now for a little bit of a negative. I did have a couple of times, primarily when I was on a call, but I think this is happening for other people in different situations, where while I was moving, I was walking my dog and one of the earbuds kind of disconnected from the other one and just completely blanked out. And it was a very sudden kind of jerky, like, and then silence. And then probably about 3 or 4 seconds later, and it came back on and I could hear everything. One time it was slightly out of phase with the other. And I realized like part of this is just Bluetooth in general. When you're talking about true wireless earbuds, that can happen. But I will say in my experience with true wireless earbuds, some earbuds do it more or at all compared to others that don't. The Jabra Elite 75Ts, I've never had that happen. I've had that happen a couple of times with the Pixel Buds, and a friend of the network, Jeff Jarvis from This Week in Google, and a number of other people on Reddit, as one example, are complaining about the issue. So it's something to keep in mind. Consider the fact that Google has promised regular software updates and firmware updates for the Pixel Buds, including feature drops. So there's something to look forward to there, and I have to imagine they're going to address this going forward if it's a wider issue than just that. This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by LastPass. Your remote workforce is a vital part of your business, but it can also be a security risk. Easily transition from office to home with LastPass. LastPass enables IT to remain in complete control over which employees are accessing which resources, and employees can securely share passwords across teams. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/twit. All right, one of my favorite features of the Pixel Buds is hands-free assistant. It might not sound like a big deal. We're very used to having assistant running on our phones so that we can say, hey, G, and throw the command and our phone, it picks it up. Why I like it so much, just as an example, on the Jabra 75Ts, I have to push the button in order for that to happen. There is a way to set up the phone with Smart Unlock so that it automatically recognizes that my Jabras are connected, and then it unlocks the phone and it's always listening without me having to press the button. But still, my command is going to the phone initially before the earphones. With the Pixel Buds, it's fully integrated with Assistant Always Listening mode. So you can turn this on if you so choose. But what it allows for is when I'm out jogging and I miss something on a podcast, I can say, hey, G, rewind 30 seconds, and boom, it does it. It jumps right into it. I don't have to push the button. I don't have to reach up. Maybe my hands, at one point I was carrying groceries and my hands were full and I wanted to play the thing that I was listening to. So I just barked the command and it worked. And it was kind of magical. I loved it. I definitely use Assistant way more with my earbuds with this feature than I do when I have to push the button in order to summon it. So that is a great, great feature. All right, now the case. I've been flashing the case a lot. I would say hands down, this is probably the best wireless earbud case that I've used to date. First of all, it's just designed really nice. It's got that total Pixel aesthetic, that soft touch kind of feel. Feels sturdy. It has almost like a Zippo lighter quality to it when flicking the top open and shut. And maybe that doesn't sound like a big deal, but consider how often we're reaching into these cases to pull our earbuds out and to put them back in. And if you have a poorly designed case, that really destroys the experience. So having a well-designed case improves it. And I think this is absolutely the case here, no pun intended. It fits into the pocket nicely. The way it's rounded, it just drops right in and it's easy to find. There is a single button on the back that enables for pairing. It's a very easy pairing process. It was a piece of cake. Basically on my phone, my Pixel 4 XL, I turned on Bluetooth, I opened the case, and a few seconds later, a message just magically appeared on my Pixel 4 XL to say, hey, tap here to pair. I didn't have to dive into Bluetooth settings to do it. It just happened. And if you want to force that pairing, you can push the button and that can make that happen as well. It has LEDs up in the top, which reflect the amount of charge in the buds themselves, and then has an LED down in the bottom to reflect the amount of charge on the case. And that's nice to know. You don't necessarily have to go into your phone to find this information, though you can. It's nice at a glance to be able to look down and go, hey, everything's fully charged. I'm good to go to run off with this. Of course, there is USB-C on the bottom for charging. Some cases don't have that, so of course Google does. And if you don't want to plug it into charge, it's another big feature here. This case supports wireless Qi charging, and that's really great when it works. I had a pretty big issue with this for a couple of days solid. I tried and tried and tried to get this case to wirelessly charge, but alas, it would not do it. It would not recognize the wireless charger. I tried many chargers, reverse wireless charging, nothing worked. Then suddenly it did, and ever since then, it's been working flawlessly. I've used it on my Pixel stand, which, by the way, pro tip, if you're using the Pixel stand to charge the Pixel Buds case, it has to be upside down. If it's right side up, it's not going to charge, but that's not a big deal. I also charged it on my Samsung Qi charger, as well as some reverse wireless charging from the S20 Ultra. And now it works, but still, I'm in touch with Google. I'm getting this replaced via warranty just to be on the safe side. So I'm not saying that this is a widespread issue, but it was with me, and keep your eyes peeled on that if you happen to pick this up. And the battery, speaking of the battery, I would say the battery on a full charge, I got around 5 to 6 hours for the earbuds, which I think is perfectly sufficient for me because I'm never listening to my earbuds longer than that, ever. You might have a different situation, so maybe that's different for you. Keep in mind that each earbud works independent of the other. Right? I talked about earlier how they can each be used in mono and the other one can be put away, either one of them. So if you really need to get 10 to 12 hours of continuous listening and you can't charge up in between, just use one bud. When that runs out, use the other one. Good, you're golden. The case itself charges buds very quickly. I think a 10-minute charge gets you about 2 hours of playback roughly. So these are fast charge that's happening. And then the wireless charge of the case or plugged in charge is pretty darn fast as well. So personally, I know a lot of people are complaining about the battery life on the Pixel Buds, and it just was not an issue for me. Now, finally, the app, if you want to call it an app, it's actually integrated into settings. It only appears in your Bluetooth settings when the Pixel Buds are actually connected to the phone. So you have to tap into the settings through Bluetooth, and boom, there you've got the app that's integrated there. You have controls for Assistant, of course, also your touch control customization if you want to set different functions for different touch control taps and that sort of thing. In-ear detection, adaptive sound, of course, is there. There's also a feature for Find My Device, which actually rings your earbud. If you happen to lose it, maybe you drop it in the couch cushions is the usual example, or wherever it happens to be, you hit that in settings and it'll throw that command to the earbuds if they're within kind of connection distance, and they start to ring. And it works really well. I'm really happy to have that. I think it's a great feature. One thing you won't find in the app is any sort of EQ. So if you want to craft the sound of the Pixel Buds, like I said, sound wasn't necessarily the best when compared to the Jabra Elite 75Ts. I could make it sound better if I had control of it with some EQ settings, but you're not going to find that in the stock settings app. So maybe that's a feature that Google will include in a future feature update. So overall, how do I feel about the Pixel Buds? I'd say I feel pretty positive about them. You know, there's a lot that I really like here. Design, of course, the wireless charge, when it works, is really nice. Hands-free assistant, which, man, I love that feature. The sound is pretty good. Again, like I said, not as good as the 75Ts, but still pretty solid in and of itself. The spatial vent really grew on me, though, you know, keep your eyes on what situations that might be better on over others. And the promise of software updates, I think, is a pretty great thing to look forward to. On the downside, battery life is, yes, let's say somewhat less than the competition. Didn't bother me, might for you. Definitely discomfort of long wears over time because of that little nub that fits into your ear. Strange periodic dropouts, which I hope Google addresses, because it sounds like I'm not the only one that experienced that. And the wireless charge design. Again, that only happened on these that I'm aware of, but your mileage may vary. So overall, $179 might sound and feel pricey, and maybe it is. There are a lot of true wireless earbuds out there that are in the double digits instead of the triple digits, but you're also going to find a lot of the competition in this price category. And price to price, when I'm comparing my two earbuds here, the Pixel Buds and the Jabra Elite 75Ts, I mean, they're both pretty compelling, but for different reasons. It's hard for me to pick one over the other. I think maybe I still prefer the Jabra Elite 75Ts, just a hint, because sound quality to me is really important, but that full hands-free assistant integration is really hard for me to give up. And definitely these feel like your Pixel earbuds. Like if you are a Pixel fan, you're going to want these in your toolbox. I'm Jason Howell, host of Hands on Android, a techie look at how to customize your Android device, as well as take a look underneath the hood and see what's really going on down there. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/HOA, or you can find Hands on Android in your podcatcher of choice.
Keep up with all the hottest tech news and gadgets. Visit twit.tv. There you'll be able to find and subscribe to all our tech shows. Thanks for watching Hands on Tech.
This week on Hands on Photography, it is part 2 of our shelter-in-place time-lapse photography and video tutorial. Check it out. Hands on Photography is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Keeping passwords on notes or spreadsheets doesn't work anymore. LastPass easily keeps track and creates unique passwords for every site you use. Visit lastpass.com/twit.
This is Twit.
This episode of Hands on Photography is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Cut your wireless bill down to just $15 a month with their 3-month introductory plan and get the plan shipped to your door for free at mintmobile.com/hop. Hey everybody, I'm Ant Pruitt, and this is Hands On Photography here on Twit TV. I hope you're doing well. I am unbelievable as always, and I'm just sitting here practicing shelter-in-place photography, if you will, because we're still dealing with COVID-19 and following all of our shelter-in-place restrictions. I hope y'all are doing well, and I hope everyone is safe out there. And I appreciate you taking the time to join in this week and check out the show each and every Thursday. Does mean a lot. So for those of you that are just now checking out the show for the very first time, welcome. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how this show works. This is Hands-On Photography, and this is my way of taking the tips and tricks that I have learned over the years to help make you a better photographer and a better post-processor. I didn't go to film school or photography school or anything like that. I just spent a lot of time dinking and geeking out with different cameras and geeking out with software just to try to see how things work and how to make my shots better. Because when I tried to approach the professional photographers in the area and online and things like that, they were flat out rude to me and pretty much just said, you know what, you need to get a real camera because I didn't have this gear or that gear or whatever. I ain't had no time for that. I just wanted to learn photography, and so I just sat down and taught myself. And if I can do it and be able to get out there and sell prints and get freelance work and things like that, you can too, and I'm going to share my tips with you. So if this is your first time joining and this sounds like the type of show that interests you, feel free to hit subscribe in your favorite podcatcher of choice, or just head on over to our website to see the different subscription options. The website is twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/hop for Hands-On Photography. And you'll see that we have options for Apple Podcasts and Spotify and even our YouTube channel. So check out all of the subscription options over there and subscribe and share the show out with other folks. And again, I'm here sheltering in place at the home studio, so you may hear some background noise from outside. I've been battling with that all morning. Hopefully it won't interrupt the show too much. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with this week's show. Last week on the show, we talked about another shelter-in-place tactic that I was doing from a photography standpoint, which was time-lapse photography / time-lapse video. And I walked you through setting up your camera and understanding what a time-lapse is and the different tools and things like that you'll need to create a time-lapse. And where we ended off on part one of this series, we stopped at just getting all of your images imported into your computer and did some batch post-processing. Remember I talked about batch post-processing back about 3 episodes, so I can't remember the exact number, but yeah, there's an episode about batch post-processing, so check that out too. But yeah, I got them into Lightroom, and then we just needed to export those images out so we could use them inside of our video editor to create a time-lapse video sequence. And for this episode, I'm going to use Adobe's Premiere Pro. I've already done the Lightroom part, but right now for the video side, I'm going to use Adobe Premiere Pro because I'm a Creative Cloud user and an authorized Adobe affiliate, of course. You can use any video editor that you want. A lot of this functionality is pretty normal in most any video editors out there. Even the free ones like DaVinci Resolve can do stuff like this. But I'm going to show you all Premiere Pro and how we're going to walk through and just make all of those 200 or so images that we snapped into a video sequence. But before we get into that, I want to take a few moments to thank this week's sponsor. This episode of Hands On Photography is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile makes it easy. Every plan comes with unlimited nationwide talk and text. Choose plans with 3, 8, or 12 gigabytes of 4G LTE data. Use your own phone and keep the same number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month with their 3-month introductory plan and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/hop. That's mintmobile.com/hop. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/hop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and fire up Premiere Pro and show you my screen here just by hitting this magical button on my computer. Boom. So now we have Premiere Pro. This interface, I know it could be a little bit scary to look at, but don't worry. I promise you, Premiere Pro is pretty easy to use. Just have to get past this facade of all of these different menus and panels and things like that. We'll walk through this pretty easily. Okay, so down here we have our file menu. Well, it's not down here, up here in the upper left corner, we have our file menu. And we're just going to import all of those images that we shot and did the post-processing on. Okay, so now you'll see I have roughly 200 images right here in this folder, but I'm not going to do a single click on the first one and then grab the very last one by holding down shift so everything gets highlighted or anything like that. I won't do that. That's not going to work here. So let's cancel out of that and we'll try this again. So we're going to say File, Import, or Control I on your keyboard. And instead of doing a select all of the images, I'm just going to click on the first image, just like this. Just click one time, not a double click, just a single click. And you'll see here in the bottom of the dialog window, there's this little message that says image sequence. Well, what does that mean? So ideally, when you're shooting on your DSLR, mirrorless, or what have you, sometimes with your smartphone, the file names that come from each image, they're usually in a sequential format. Like the first shot is file 1, the next shot is file 2, and so on and so forth. And in this case, that's what happened with the time lapse. And I want to tell Premiere Pro, I shot 200 or so different photographs and they're in sequential naming order. So let's bring them all in, but I don't want to bring them all in as individual images. I want to bring them in as one sequence file. Okay, so let's go back to Premiere Pro and take a look. All right, so I'm going to click one time on that image and you'll notice the file name is, that one ends in 35 and then 36, 37, so on and so forth. And I'm going to make sure this little box down here that says image sequence is checked. Okay, so click there, that's checked, and I'm going to click open, and Premiere is going to think and it's going to pull the file in. All right, so now in this little panel, project panel in the bottom left corner of my screen, it looks like I just have one file here, but it's not. It's actually all of those images pulled into one placeholder, if you will. Now here in the middle of the video editors, you have your timeline, and this is pretty common terminology for any video editor out there. You have to get your raw data placed onto a video timeline so you can, manipulate it and make it look the way you want it to look and be as long as it needs to be, far as 10 seconds or 2 minutes or however. That's your timeline. That's what that's for. It's a spot to edit your sequence. All right, so I'm just going to take this image and drag it over to the timeline like so and drop it. Premiere is going to warn me and say, hey, this clip doesn't necessarily match the settings that you have. My timeline is set up to be an HD timeline. So that means it's a resolution of 1920 by 1080 pixels. Those images are going to be a little bit bigger than that, or they're going to be roughly at a different aspect ratio. I think I exported these out to be 1920 on the long edge, but my camera doesn't shoot in a 16:9 aspect ratio. So it's going to pull them in and say, hey, this isn't a 16:9 aspect ratio. It's more of a squeezed in square 3:2 format. So I need to tell Premiere it's okay. We can just work with this however it is. So let's go ahead and switch back. And I'm going to tell Premiere, keep the existing settings. Don't change my sequence settings. So I'm just going to click keep it. All right. So now when we look at the screen, it looks like my image is cut off a little bit. Okay. So, well, it sort of looks like it's cut off, but I'm going to double check by making sure the scaling is okay. Yeah, there we go. We'll put it like that. And if I want it to fill the screen, I can scale it up and then push it down a little bit because I didn't want to cut the top off. Okay, so now there, I got it squared away and it's ready to go. Now inside of Premiere Pro, you have to deal with rendering and pre-rendering, if you will, to see how your video is going to look. If I was to hit play on my spacebar right now and let it do a little bit of a preview, it may play it, but depending on the type of hardware that you have in Premiere Pro, it'll slow down just a bit, but we'll see. Let me go ahead and just show you how it would look as a pre-render. So I'm just going to hit play, and it stutters a little bit, but that's okay. That is an easy fix. Inside of Premiere Pro, I can just go to sequence and hit render in and out. And Premiere is going to think about it and say, hey, he just pulled in 200 or so image files. We need to turn this into an actual video real quick. So let's go through and scan it and blend it all together. And if you look at this dialogue, it wasn't 200 images. It was actually 194. So I was close. Okay, so now when I play it back, you can see that this is a time-lapse footage. But I wanted to explain to you again that when we did the actual setup and shooting of this, again, this was 200 photographs that were snapped at about every 5 seconds or so for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So what you're seeing on the screen is what's happening between each snap. So every 5 seconds, there was just a little bit of movement in the sky. And when you blend it all together, it just gives you a whole lot more drama and a whole lot more movement to look at. And that essentially is how a time lapse works. So now from here, you just export this video file out. That's as easy as doing Control M and saying export as a video and save it to your hard drive, and boom, Bob's your uncle, and you're done and good to go. All right, so I'm gonna show it to you one more time on a larger screen so you can get a look at this here. So we'll just hit play, and that is a time lapse while you're sheltering in place, doing some shelter in place photography. Cool. All right. Okay, folks, so that is it for this week's episode of Hands-On Photography. I appreciate you all joining me this week and being patient with me as we battle through home studio background noise and stuff like that. It really does mean a lot that you all continue to stick with us and download the show each and every Thursday. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe now. And also, when you're subscribing, see if your app offers a rating or a comment section, and just leave us a rating and leave us a comment. All of that information really does help out the show, and it does help push us up in the ratings, so other people can find out more about hands-on photography and join in and be a part of the hands-on photography community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our online forums. That's twit.community on your browser. You can check out all of our shows there and check out the conversations between us as the host, Mr. Laporte, and all of the other community members. It's not always just talking about the shows or just talking about tech. Sometimes it's just fun, witty, funny conversation happening over there. So that's twit.community if you'd like to check out our online forums. All right. Follow me on Instagram at ant_Pruitt, and you can follow Twit on Instagram as well. And if you'd like to send over some images for critiques or just have some questions about photography or post-processing or anything like that, shoot me an email, hop@twit.tv. I am still trying to answer as many emails as I possibly can. It's been great seeing people send over their images and get critiques and things like that, or just, offer up their support. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot. As a matter of fact, a future show coming up is going to be strictly about your feedback. So if you have some questions or you have some critiques that you'd like to see, shoot the email on over to us. I look forward to seeing it. All right, that's going to do it for me this week. Check us out each and every Thursday here on the network, twit.tv. And make sure you subscribe and make sure you share with everybody else that may be interested. And in the meantime, get on out there and safely create and dominate. And I'll catch you all next time. Thanks very much, folks. And also, thank you too, Mr. Victor, for making me look good. We'll see you.
Hey, I'm Jason Howell, host of Hands on Android, a techie look at how to customize your Android device, as well as take a look underneath the hood and see what's really going on down there. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/HOA, or you can find Hands on Android in your podcatcher of choice.
Look, we went ahead and trained your brain. Now it's time to zone out
I'm going to show you a mystery you can solve with your camera.
Before I show you how to quickly and easily, but secretly, browse the web.
It's time for iOS Today. iOS Today is brought to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. It's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/iOS Today. Everybody, welcome to iOS Today. I'm Leo Laporte.
I'm Micah Sargent.
And we're here to tell you all about the latest from iOS. That would be your iPad, your iPhone. By the way, I have an iPhone regular size and an iPhone mini, your Apple Watch, your Apple TV. Is there anything we've left out? Your home hub. And when we someday get back in studio, I feel so bad because, Micah, you put so much effort into creating CarPlay, a special CarPlay console.
And now we don't.
And we don't really get to use it because we're not in the studio. Well, I'm in the studio.
And we don't drive. Well, you do.
Mike is in his studio. But we are separated by the
you gotta keep them separated.
A gulf of many miles, many years.
Despite those separations, we maintain our enthusiasm. I don't know.
Thank you. So last week we showed people how to really keep their brain humming during quarantine because you don't want
humming
COVID brain, which I have, by the way. I now officially have COVID brain.
You have self-diagnosed, yes.
I woke up in the middle of the night trying to remember something. I can't remember things anymore. I think that there's just something going on where you just...
I was just going to say, for me, my COVID brain, it's not so much about memory. I have not slept well because I keep waking up in the middle of the night in moments of panic. For some reason, I just wake up in the middle of the night and I go, something's wrong.
It's all related.
And I just feel, it's awful.
That's why I have COVID brain. Yeah. It's just, we're all kind of, what's weird for you and me, our lives have not changed super dramatically. I think that's fair to say. I mean, we're the fortunate ones who are still working and, even though we have to stay at home, I never went out. So I don't know. It's probably a little different for you. But nevertheless, I think that as a nation, really, I don't think it's national anymore. As a globe.
Yes, it is global.
We're all going through this sense of grief and loss. I mean, so I think it's natural. So be nice to each other. Be nice to yourself.
Be nice to each other and be nice to yourself. And that's what we're going to do today.
Zone out.
Some apps to zone out.
These are apps that will take your normal sinus rhythm of your brain and heart and ooh.
Wait, hold on. That sounds like death. That sounds like death. We're not going to show you.
Not how to die, but it's relaxing.
Yes.
Ooh. Just that. Ooh.
That beep is not relaxing, Leo Laporte. You're giving me anxiety.
Okay, sorry. It's back.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. My sinus rhythm is back.
So you start sinus rhythm.
All right. Okay. Well,
that's, by the way, the name of my punk band, Sinus Rhythm.
Sinus Rhythm.
That would be a good name for a band.
I've got rhythm, I've got music, I've got my gal who could ask for anything more. I'm going to start with an app called Dots because it is
perfect.
It is perfect.
It is perfect.
An old app of fun and fondness that many of you may remember.
I love this game.
So there are multiple versions of Dots these days, but I personally like the endless version for going ahead and zoning out.
Because then there's no pressure.
There's no pressure. There's no timer. There's none of that. But the point is simply to make connections, colorful connections. And by making connections, you will at some point create, do you see a square of purple? And when you make the square, it goes ahead and removes all of that color within the puzzle.
But you get more points for connecting more dots.
Correct. And so there are some times where you will make a line and it will just go all the way across the screen. And it another thing that unfortunately I cannot show you is kind of a lovely, in my opinion, sound that works with it. So it sort of goes higher and higher in pitch as you make connections.
I love it. I love it. Yep.
And I mean, this is all that there is to it. The thing like with zoning out for me, I kind of want something that feels a little mindless and is something where I could be having a conversation while I am playing this game, while I am doing this mindless task. This sort of takes the high energy parts of my brain that sort of jump around and get all anxious about stuff and focuses that part onto this so that the other tasks that I'm doing or whatever I happen to be, conversing or what have you, are much easier to do. Let me go back.
John, can you put on the Apple TV just so we can, I can make the sound for you?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And until then, you can just, do some Foley if you want to. So here's some challenges as well. Well, let me do that. That's with other people. I'll do moves. So what you have to do is you have 30 moves to connect as many dots as you can. So what can I do in 30 moves? So if you want to add a little bit of a challenge to it, then you can do so. That probably wasn't my best move. But what I'm trying to do is get some purples. Aha, there we go. Together. And you can see now I'm starting to make some progress here. I can connect these reds. There's quite a few reds and some greens.